Hey designer, Alex here, welcome to the channel, and in today's video we are going to create this awesome looking shop website. It's going to be pretty minimal and we are going to introduce all of these different animations, and I'm going to show you these techniques in this tutorial. So when users hover right here on these arrows, you can see the hover effect here, and when they tap, all of these different animations are going to happen. So we are animating number one, and number two, these numbers behind our main text. We are animating our main text. We are also animating this component card right here. Plus we are also animating these tap points, which actually expand to learn more on tap. So you can see how they look like, and you can see that we have multiple ones of these right here, and we also have the information changing right here. So when I hover and click, you can see how all of that looks like. So let's get started. Okay, so what I did for this one is I found some great images on Envato Elements, and here I'm drawing my artboard just freehand, and I'm dividing it into two, which you're going to see right here. So 30% on the left, 70% on the right. I simply drew a simple navigation at the top, and here I'm creating a number of slides because in this example we're going to have two slides. Number one for this comfort, and you're going to see another one once we get to Adobe XD in a bit. And basically I'm simply indicating number of slides and at which slide users are located at the moment. Down below we have these arrows left and right, and here we have a card with a bit more indication of the next slide with just simple drop shadow behind it. And what I'm doing here is I'm simply outlining a rough sketch of where everything is going to be positioned in my scene. So in my first slide, which is this one, comfort number one, we have this chair which is positioned at this rough point in my artboard. We also have this lamp, and you're going to see a flower pot in just a second. And all I'm doing right here is simply imagining where all of these images are going to come from, because as I said, I already have them in my head because I found them on Envato Elements, and once again I'm going to link them down below. Here we have a simple call to action button for learn more, and we can integrate it on tap for all of these different products. We have a surface line, and that's basically it for this one. Now let's scan it and move on to Adobe XD. And here we are in Adobe XD, and let's get started with the tutorial. If you want to follow along this exact project file, you can join my membership. Link is going to be down in the description below. You can get this and every other practice file here on the channel in that membership, alongside all of my courses, all of my design products, mentorship, private access to the Facebook group, and much more. So once again, if you're interested, link is going to be down in the description below if you want to join my membership. If not, you can simply follow along this tutorial like any other tutorial. So to get started, that paper wireframe that I just created, I'm going to drag and drop it inside. You saw that I'm using a scanner, but if you don't have a scanner, you can simply use your phone to drag and drop it inside. I like to have it by my side, and I like to have it inside of my file, just in case if I need to show it to my clients, and if I need to get a quick reference if I'm working on a field, for example, somewhere in a coffee shop or a place like that, co-working space or whatever else. I can simply glance at my paper wireframe to see what I had in mind once I created it. Now that that's done, I can jump ahead and start creating my layout. So as you can see right here, we have our layout in two, so 30% and 70%. Let's get started with that one. So to get started, I'm going to simply use my rectangle, and you can see that I have all of these colors, character styles, and a few of these major components already created. So with a rectangle, what I want to do is use this color, and I want to make it 614. Like that, which is going to basically spread out to 4 columns wide. I'm going to go to my layers panel, double click right here and call it information BG, hit Ctrl D, and I'm going to call this one image 1, because we are going to have two different images. I'm going to spread my image until it meets right here, and I'm going to jump in right here and use this color, for example, because I already have my images prepared. Let me quickly create a duplicate, so hit Ctrl D, because as I said, we're going to have two images inside. So let me drag and drop the first image right here. which is this image, and let me quickly hide it and simply drag and drop my second image inside like that. And now let's go ahead and double click inside of this one and make sure it's roughly around here, so you can see all of these different elements. And once again, I'm going to link the collection of these images from Envato Elements, which are premium images, of course, if you guys want to use them. Next, let's hide this, and I'm going to double click inside and simply move this until it's roughly around here. So you can see that we have this floor line, and you can jump inside of Photoshop if you want to quickly adjust the saturation, for example, of these images. So simply brightness and contrast until they meet even better. But I really like them this way because you're going to see later in the transition, this part is going to come up really nicely once we include the auto animate feature. Now let's get started and get back to our design. So what I'm going to do first is move these images down a little bit, and I'm going to come right here, drag and drop my logo inside. It's simply a text logo, so I'm not going to bother you too much with it. And let's quickly jump to our images and our information BG, remove the borders because we don't need any borders with these. Let's quickly scroll through. Yep, everything is fine. Now let's go back to here, and I want to create that navigation. So I'm going to simply use the basic text right here. So hit T and type in products, and I'm going to hit Control G to group it, call it nav. Move it just down below my logo. I'm going to include a stack feature, and I really like this feature of Adobe XD. Hit Control D, Control D, Control D, Control D. Let's see, so 2, 4, 5. Yeah, I think that's good. I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to select Open Sans 18 a regular. Let's see if I can do that one more time. So regular, like that. And let's see, inside of our stack, I can, for example, put in 80, just so I can give myself a bit more room to play around with, and I can position it roughly around here. Then come right here to search icon, drag and drop it in place, and I'm going to move it right here at the very edge of our grid, like that. Then I'm going to position it right here, select all three, click right here, to make sure that they are in the center. And in terms of the spacing itself, what I want to put is 40, for example. So let's first group them, hit Control G, call this navigation, position it to the top like this, shift 1, 2, 3, 4 until they are 40 down, and that's basically how that's going to look like. You can quickly preview it right here, so simply hit preview just to see how it looks like, and I think it looks good so far. Now what I'm going to do next, now that the navigation is completed, what I can do is create that text, which is going to come right here. So first things first, let's actually create those numbers, so 0, 1 and 0, 2. Let's hit T, type in 0, 1, select it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a huge one, so Open Sans 700. Position it roughly around here, let's say, and I like how that looks like so far. Let's leave it there for now, and actually what I'm going to do is simply type in 02, just so that I can position it a little bit better, because I don't want the number 2 to be cut off too much. So I can roughly position it right around here. I think that's good. Hit Control D to duplicate it, and then double click inside, select 01. Go back to my layers panel. I think that looks good, and what I'm going to do straight away is create a rectangle roughly around here. You can lower down the opacity if you want to, just so that you can be a bit more precise, but I don't think that matters too much in this case. I just wanted to go from edge to edge here, and I'm going to leave it a bit of space right here. I'm going to call it text mask, like this, and I'm going to mask my numbers, so hit Shift Control M, or Shift Command M if you're on a Mac, Control V to paste it in. And what I'm going to do at this point is, because we're going to be at the slide number 1, I'm going to actually move the 02 right here. So I'm using Shift and left arrow, just so it's out of the way, like so. And now number 1 is masked. What I'm going to do next is simply select both of them and hit 05 on my keyboard, which is going to bring it down to 5% in opacity, or you can simply use this slider if you want to. Now that that's completed, I'm actually going to call it numbers mask, because we're going to have another mask, which is going to actually be a text mask on top right in a second. So let's use our text tool one more time, hit T, and I'm going to type in state of the art like this. And I'm going to use 18 regular, and let's see, I can use white, for example, and I can position it, let's see, roughly around here. I think it's going to look quite good, but actually let's position it here. Hit Ctrl D. On this one, comfort, like that, and I'm going to use Playfair Display 202. And I'm going to left align it like so. And let's see, because this is just a freehand, I'm going to position it below just so I can operate this one. And let's see, perhaps I can position it here just until the bottom edge of my text is touching this text, and I can maybe shift it 20 pixels up or 30 pixels up, however you want. So this is all freehand at this point, so you can do whatever you want with it. Ctrl D, position it roughly around here, and I'm going to actually copy and paste the text which I used previously. And for this one, I can line it up like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, perhaps. Let's see how that looks like. I think that looks good, but because we used 30, you can use 30 if you want to, but I think, yeah, let's leave it like that. Position it right here below, and I'm going to actually use this color just to differentiate it a little bit. What I'm going to do next is group these ones, Ctrl G, call it text 1, because that's actually going to be our text number 1. And then for the text 2, what I want to do is basically exactly the same thing. So I'm going to hit Ctrl D, duplicate this one, Ctrl S to save it out, because on some of my previous videos I had some issues, and I found that when you frequently save it out, Adobe XD is not going to be as buggy as if you don't. So on this one, I'm going to actually write in a living like this. So this is going to be our text number 2, because it's going to be down below. Now what I'm going to do once again is double click inside. I'm going to hit Ctrl V to paste in the second text like so. And let's see, this living text should actually go right here like this. Let's see, line this one up. This is fine. I'm going to hide this one, show this one. Let's see, comfort is not in place, so I'm going to line it up like this, line this one like this, and this is fine. So now that our text is completed, what I'm going to do is actually create another mask. So I'm going to show this text, use my rectangle roughly around here. You can use your keyboard shortcuts just to lower down the opacity and see where this is going. And you can clearly see that living is a shorter word than comfort. So what I'm doing right here is simply masking it up to a point there, for example, like that. And I'm going to call this one text mask, bring it up in opacity, and that really doesn't matter. You can leave it however you want, because it's going to be masked either way. So text mask like this, and I can position it just below my navigation, but just above the text mask, because once again, if I move it down, you're not going to be able to see it just because of these numbers. Inside of the text mask, and for this first image and for this first slide, what I want to do is simply move this text down. I'm using shift and bottom arrow, and I'm going to lower down in opacity to 0%. Once again, double tap on your 0 key on your number pad, can do that, and you can also use this slider right here on your right. So now that that's completed, what we can do at this stage is add arrows and create this card. So let's actually start with the card. What I'm going to do is use 3 columns at this stage and simply move it right around here, for example. And let's see, I don't like these corners. So what I can do is jump in right here. I can type in 20 for the top left, 0 for this one, which is top right, and 20 for these two. What that does is simply rounds up all of these corners instead of this one. What I'm also going to do is remove my border. In terms of size, let's see, 532 with 220. I think that's good. And let's include a shadow of 520, and I'm going to reduce the opacity to 8, for example, just so it's a bit lighter. What I'm going to call it is item or next item BG, like that, because it's going to be either next or previous, and let's move it 40 pixels from this edge just because we have 40 pixels right here. And at this stage, what we can do is we can nudge our text a little bit. We can, for example, position it up a little bit if we want to. So we can select both of our text masks and we can move it to whatever we want. You can be as precise as you want, but I just want to keep it in a range or like this. I don't want to be perfectly in the center. I'm going to position this right here, so below all of these items. And before I'm moving with the information, what I want to do is drag and drop my arrows. So I have my right arrow, which is actually going to be my left arrow. So let me rename it like this. So this is our left arrow. And let's see where it is. It is right here. But for some reason I actually included this, so information BG, let's see, here it is. And let's use a right arrow, drop it inside, select both of them, place them like this, and let's position them in the center of this background, so like this. And what I can do at this point is perhaps move it right here, just so it's a little bit closer than this. It's at 47.7, so we can position it and be precise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, for example, 40 pixels, and you can line it however you want. If you think it's too close, you can actually move it just a little bit. So let's give it that 47.7 and just leave it there. Now what these arrows have are hover states. So if I hover, you can see that the opacity is just dropped down on the hover itself. So nothing too major. Let's now move inside and let's actually create the image right here. So I'm going to hit Ctrl D on this one, position it roughly around here, remove my shadow. I'm going to use this color just so that we can see where it is. And for all corners, I'm going to use 20% like this. So let's go with 190, with 192, like that. I'm going to position it roughly around here. And let's see, maybe I can bring it 14. So now we are, let's see, from this edge 14, 14, 14, which is fine. And what I'm going to do is actually name it. So let's go with let's see, image 1, hit Ctrl D, and let's rename it to image number 2, because once again we are going to show when you are at this slide, you're going to show the next image here. When you are at the next image, you're actually going to show this image to go back to this slide, which is the number 1 at this case. So now that we had that and we have, let's see where we are, next item BG, I can actually move on and group them. And I can call them, for example, let's say items, like that. And let's go ahead and add our text inside. So hit T, and for this first one, I'm going to type in the chair. Or actually, let's go with combination, because this first one is actually showing the chair and the next one is showing the combination of all of these different items alongside the chair itself. So let's show that and let's see where we are from our image. So maybe we can move it 40, like that. Hit Ctrl D, and for this one, I'm actually going to use a regular, like that. I'm going to use this color. And let me go ahead and let's see, I can actually copy the text and paste it in right here. Hey designers, sorry to interrupt myself, but I just wanted to quickly mention that you can get this practice file alongside every course and product I have ever made in my membership. You can get this practice file if you want to follow along this and every future video I make. A link is going to be down in the description below, so you can check it out if you're interested. Now let's get back to the video. Like that. Just so that I can move on a little bit faster, and I can position, for example, 30 pixels down and group them in here. What I'm going to do next actually is recreate the same text. So let's move it up. So this is going to be image number 2. So let's put it just below our image number 2, hit Ctrl D, and I'm going to position these two right here because that's going to be for the image number 1. So I'm going to hide these, and this is going to be the chair, like this. And the chair is actually going to show this text. So let me paste it in like that. And now that that's completed, what I'm going to do is add my images once again. So once again, these are going to be exactly the same images. So image number 1 is going to show the chair itself. I'm going to double click inside, position it right here, and perhaps I can even hold my shift key and move it up just a little bit, just so I can scale it a little bit better. I'm going to hide my image number 1. I'm going to drag and drop my image number 2 inside, double click, position it roughly around here, let's say, just so that we can see the living room example. And I'm going to hit 0 2 times on my keyboard just so that I can hide the image number 2. And that's basically it. Transitions for this one are just going to be a showing and hiding of these two. So double tap our 0 key to lower it down in opacity, as you can see right here. So these three are at 0 opacity, and when we switch to the next section and the next slide, they're going to be 100 opacity, and these three right here are going to be at 0. And that's basically it for our design. The last thing which we want to create is this tapping point. So as you can see, I already have it right here, which says more info, and it has basically two states, default state and clicked state. So let me quickly show you how I created that. Let's go ahead and get rid of this one, and I'm actually going to jump aside and create it from scratch. So what you need to do right there is basically create this background. So let's go with the rectangle, and what I want to do is go with 60 by 60 like that, and I'm going to round all of my corners to create a circle, remove the border, position it roughly around here, and I have this plus icon which I'm going to drag and drop inside. And for this circle, I'm going to use this color just so that it stands out. Select these two, make sure they are in the center, and position them roughly around here. That's basically it for this first step. In the next step, what I want to do is actually add my text in. So what I'm going to do is bring in my corner radius down and simply extend it to roughly around here until it's at 202, for example, roughly around there. And I can round my corners at this point. I'm going to use my text tool, type in learn more, or you can even type in buy now or whatever you want with it. And let's see, for the spacing, I can, for example, move it 20 like that. Just make sure everything is in the center like that, and I can use my white. And I'm actually in my original example I used regular font size, but I'm going to use bold at this stage just so I can give it a bit more visual interest. Finally, what I want is to go ahead and rename all of these so I can know what they are. So this is actually going to be called circle, even though it's not a circle, but just because we can know what it is at that stage. And I'm going to duplicate it, Ctrl D, call this one a mask, position it on top of the text, but not on top of the plus itself. And basically I'm going to mask them like this, and I'm going to call it mask. Now at the first stage, what we want to do is bring this down to 60. And you can see right here what it does. So we are looking at 60 for the width, like this, and this is going to be our first stage completed. For some reason it didn't mask this text, so let's check it out one more time. Yeah, I have to mask it with this edge like this. So there we have it. Now the text is masked, and now we can group these. Let's use Ctrl G, and maybe we can type in learn more or more info like that, and you can click right here to add it as a component. But I'm going to actually, because I have it as a component right here, I'm going to hit right click and delete, just so that I can add this new version that I created just now as my component. Next up, I'm going to create a new state right here, call it clicked. And on this clicked state, what we want to do is actually simply expand our mask. So we can go right here, expand our mask like so. And for our circle, What we want is to expand it to be, let's remember 202 was like this. And that's basically it. You can bring your mask inside a little bit, and to spice things up just a little bit in this stage, what I want is to rotate my icon right to here, just so it's X and it's rotating in this right direction, because that's where the mask is expanding and that's how it's transforming. What I want to do is go back to the default state and test it out, see how it looks like. I think that's good. And basically that's it. Now comes the time for us to create the second state of our design. And what we want to do in this second state is actually create these changes. So all you need to do is simply select your artboard, hit Ctrl D on your keyboard. Now that we are here, what I want is to start with my text first of all. So with this text, as you remember, we have text 1 and text 2. What I want is to bring back the opacity of the text 2 and move it into place until it's met with this text like this. Next up, I'm going to use this one, use my shift key, move it up until it's out of the way, bring it down in opacity with my 0 key. Numbers mask, what I want to do at this stage, and I didn't actually group these, so let's do that. I'm going to hit Ctrl G, call these arrows, because they are not really changing, and I'm going to move them down to here, just above my items. I'm going to do the same thing right here, so Ctrl G, call them arrows, and move them just above my items. And it's crucial, if you're using auto animate like we are going to at the moment, to have all of your layer names consistent and all of your grouping consistent, just in order for the Adobe XD to be able to pull off that animation. So let's go right here. We have the living. Now let's transform these ones. What I want to do in this case is actually move my numbers from left to right. How I'm going to do that is basically the same thing. So I'm going to bring it right to here until they meet like that. And then I'm going to move number 1 out of the way like this. And I'm actually going to lower it down in opacity to 0. It's at 0.5, which it's not a lot, but still I want to have that consistency throughout my animation. Now for the items, what we have right here is the chair. And let's quickly switch to image number 2. So all I'm going to do with image number 1 is lower down the opacity. So at this stage, we are going to use the chair because we want it to move that way. And on the first one, we want to actually hide the chair and hide these two, and then show image number 2, and then show these ones. I'm simply pressing 2 on my number pad, and you can go right here to increase your opacity. Now that that's completed, what I want to do is actually move this one right to here. And actually what I can do is, I can move it right to here. I can hold my Alt key and simply create a bunch of these copies, position it right here, position it right here, or maybe one right here, for example. And let's test it out, see how it looks like. It looks good. And basically what I want to do is select these, Control C, and I want to jump in right here, Control V, because these are going to be their original positions. And what I want to do is simply nudge their places just a bit. So move this right here, move this right here, move this right around here. And I'm going to select all of them like this, Control G, and call them more info. And I'm actually going to move this, let's see, we can move it right to, let's say here, and arrows are not in place, they should be right here. And I should save it out at this point because it's showing me these bugs once again, and it doesn't allow me to name my layers, as you can see. So let's open it up one more time. And now that I've done that, I can simply name them to more info, for example. Or let's see what we call it. Yeah, more info. So I'm going to hit Control C and basically remember where I positioned everything. So I'm going to group all of these, call them more info, and put them, let's see where I put them, just above my arrows. So I'm going to do the same thing right here, so just above my arrows. And what I'm going to do at this first state is, because you don't see these three, we are going to lower them down in opacity. So this is the original one, we are not going to mess with it, but these three, simply lower them down in opacity, just so when we transition to this one we actually have some visual interest. And because we moved their original places from here, they are going to actually transition and show up in opacity. So I think we are done. I think that's completed, and now what we can do is actually move on to prototyping. And what I want to do at prototyping stage is I want users to be able to tap on all of these. So I'm going to jump to my original one, which is this one, and I'm going to go to prototype. I'm going to tap it, use tap, auto animate, destination clicked, ease in out, and 0.6 seconds. Go to clicked, click right here, tap, auto animate, destination is default state, ease in out 0.6. And let's quickly test it out and see how that looks like. I think that looks good. You can increase or decrease your speed even more if you want to, but I think that works just fine. Now, if we jump right here, you can see that it works on all of them, because this was our default component and a main component, but all of these are children or child components created from this component, because we used Alt and left click to create these copies. So you can see everything works flawlessly. One thing I didn't animate in this design is this search bar, but you can browse my channel. There are plenty of other tutorials on my channel and on the YouTube as well, showing you how you can animate these, and perhaps I can tackle this in one of the next tutorials. So now that this is completed and I show you how to do this, what we want to do actually is initiate our trigger to go between these two. So how we are going to do that is we are going to use our arrows. So on our arrows, I'm going to use my right arrow, which is this one, and I'm going to use a tap trigger on hover state. So when users hover, we're going to use tap, auto animate, and we are going to choose the destination online shop number 1, like this. Ease in out, and I'm going to use 1 second, just so I want to make it a little bit longer. Go back to the default state on our arrow and go right here to these arrows. At this stage, left arrow, hover state, click on it, use the tap trigger. I'm going to use auto animate, so same settings, but this time I want to go to online shop right here. Ease in out 1 second. Go back to the default state just so that we can see the hover state itself, and let's test it out and see what we have so far. So here we are. When I hover, you can see that the hover effects work well. And if I want to click right here, you can see learn more, and you can take your users from here to the product page itself. So when I hover and click, you can see how this looks like, and you can see all of these moving and changing, positioning into place, and once again all of them work, and you can click on all of them and expand all of them if that's something that you want, or you can close all of them and make your users tap one by one depending of what you want to do. But you can see that now the chair is right here, and when I hover on the left arrow, you can see this is changing the combination to right here, comfort 0-1. So let's test it out one more time, and just pay attention to this part of the second image. So when I hover and click, you can see how dark this part is, but just pay attention to this part. When I hover and click, you can see how light that is, and now the lamp is moved right here. So there we have it. That's the tutorial. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you liked these simple techniques, and I hope you are going to implement them in your design. Make sure to subscribe to this channel because I upload new content every single week on Adobe XD about passive income techniques, about motivation, freelancing, and much more. So if you're interested in those kinds of topics and you don't want to miss them, make sure to subscribe and make sure to give this video a like so other people can find it as well. And until next one, take care.